Hi students, welcome to another session. So far we have been discussing Unit 2 and we are almost ending this chapter, and let us see the topics which we have covered so far and proceed to the session. So far, if you can see Unit 2, that is Methods of Enquiry in Psychology, we have seen introduction, that is what is psychological inquiry. It is almost equal to research, and goals of psychological inquiry, steps in conducting scientific research, alternative paradigms of research, nature of psychological data, that is types of data, and in the past week we have seen the important methods in psychology, that is these six methods: observation method, experimental method, correlation research, survey research, psychological testing, case study. All these things are unique and according to the situations we have to use them according to the situation. Though every method is unique and has its own usage and disadvantages, and these are useful to collect data from responder, from the public, from the people. Okay, so next we have learned the different methods and techniques, and then after getting the data we also learn what to be inferred from the data. That is, there are methods related to, like observation, it is like qualitative. Experimental, it is quantitative. You can, by experimental methods, you can get numbers as results. Correlation, yes, also numbers. Survey, this is qualitative. Psychological testing, it is quantitative. This is also numbers. Whereas in case study, it depends on, it is either qualitative or quantitative. Based on these things, you have get the data which you can uh, give some meaning. Okay, and you may also use 2 to 3 techniques in one method, like observation method and experimental method in one research, like mixed up approach. In such a way, you will get some quantitative data, and based on the quantitative data and other information, you can approach in a qualitative way and then go for the results. Okay, and the last 2 topics we have are limitations of psychological inquiry and ethical issues. So today we will check with the topic, that is limitations of psychological inquiry. Limitations. What do you mean by limitations? Limitations are the, there can be a, say for example, in a study you are not able to apply any of these methods, or these methods are not suitable to the conditions. Okay, with this, you, even though you have multiple techniques in conducting research, you have some limitations, because As human behavior is complex, you may not apply all these techniques. Even though applied, there will be some disadvantages or drawbacks in relevant method you took for the research. Okay, let us see what are those limitations. Yes, the advantages and limitations of each method have been discussed earlier. In this section, you will read some general problems faced by psychological measurement. That is, first one, lack of true zero point, relative nature of psychological tools, subjective interpretation of qualitative data. So these are the limitations. So let us see these limitations individually. Lack of true zero point. The word lack, it is unavailable. True zero point means zero value is not available. In physical sciences, measurements do start from zero. For example, if you want to measure the length of the table, you can measure it starting from zero and can say it is 3 inch long. Sorry, it is 3 feet long. Psychological measurements do not have a true zero point. Okay, so if you can take a square, you will have length and breadth, right? If you take a cube, it has length, breadth, and height. When you're dealing with this with a circle, you have some radius, diameter, you have values. But how the values start? The starting point is zero. You start from a zero, like 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So in that way, you will be doing physical measurements. The measurements can be taken in centimeters, meters, kilometers, feet, and inches, etc. This is related to distance, and there can be other physical parameters also. But if you can take psychological measurements, do you can you say that, okay, let us discuss here what is available. And for example, no person in the world has zero intelligence. Yes, all of us have some degrees of intelligence. Yes, how can we know? If a child born, a newly born child knows how to cry, how to smile, how to call her mother, how to get attention, look around, hearing, the sense organs are working from the day zero. And even in the birth, during the pregnancy time also, the child able to react for the emotions of the mother, right? So for the human being, the behavior is not from zero. The degrees of intelligence is not from zero. So there is already some knowledge, behavior which is pre-programmed, that is from by DNA, by genetics, or the just during the pregnancy, the world around, because of the sense organs development, it is not from the zero. So you are getting the difference, right? Now, what psychologists do is that they arbitrarily decide a point as 0 point and proceed further. Arbitrarily. Arbitration. Say, for example, they start a reference, they put a standard, like a human being has a general intelligence of 75, like a normal, not about the disability or special ability. They will start a reference point by examining or conducting research. They come to a arbitrary point, and then with that reference, they will start working on understanding behavior. As a result, whatever scores we get in psychological studies are not absolute in nature, rather they are relative value. Relative because they are compared. They are compared to some arbitrary value. For example, as I said, 75 is average intelligence. With this 75, if this 75 above 75, you are intelligent. Below 75, you are less intelligent, poor intelligent. Even for example, say in exams you decide 25 or 100 as benchmark. With this reference, you mark above 9, it is brilliant. 8, it is good. 7, average. 6, below average, etc. Right? So there will be a reference point for psychological assessments. This is called relative value, but this is not absolute value. There is no absolute value in psychology. In physical measurements, yes, there is an absolute zero, but in psychology, there is no absolute zero. That is what? True 0 point. Absolute zero. Okay, in some of the studies, ranks are used as scores. For example, on the basis of marks obtained in some test, the teacher arranges the students in an order 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. The problem in such type of assessment is that the difference between first and second rank holders may not be the same as is the difference between the second and third rank holders. Out of 50, the first rank holder might score 48 and second 47 and third 40. As you can see, the difference between the first and second rank holders is not same as the case between second and third rank holders. So what is the difference? 48, 47, 40. So the difference is 1 and 47 to it is 7. The first difference is 1, the second difference is 7, there can be 6, 5, 0, yes. But what is the standard? It is 50. Relevant to 50, a degree, they will be decided, right? Then, this illustrates relative nature of psychologist measurement. Yes, there is no. For example, for physical sciences, if you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is it? 1. There is a consistency maintained with equal measurements. Equal measurements. But in psychology, there is no such. There can be several differences. And moreover, this is also related to qualitative. You cannot quantify everything. So that is what this lack of true 0 point is, and hope you understand. Next, relative nature of psychological tools. That is what in the earlier we discussed the relative nature. We are comparing. Okay, so let us see this one. Psychological tests are developed keeping in view the salient features of a particular context. So context and test. Okay, for example, a test developed for urban students may contain items that demand familiarity with the stimuli available in the urban settings. That is multi-story buildings, aeroplanes, metros, railways, etc. So what he is saying, if you can see, the psychological tests are context based. What context? Urban. Urban. What is an urban city or metro city? Generally you see heavy traffic, large buildings. Those buildings are not or cannot be seen in tribal areas. In tribal areas, the conditions are hilly terrain. The climate will be cool. In urban, there may be heavy noise pollution, but in tribal areas, it is more forest, more greenery, like these type of conditions. Like in urban, you may get medical facilities, but in tribal, it is difficult, right? So we would be more at ease which items that decrease their flora and fauna. So I have given you the flora and fauna. Flora means a plant life. Fauna means animal life or living beings. Living beings in particular region. Okay. Similarly, it has developed in Western countries like say US and South America, or may not be applicable to the Indian context. Indian context, say Eastern countries, because India as a diversified and secularistic country, and US and UK, all those religions are same, but in India, the conditions are very different. So, and in another way, you can also recall that, okay, in India is a subcontinent. How? It has the culture, it has mixed culture, there are several languages spoken, the geographical conditions in India also, like it is covered in the three parts, it is covered and one part by land. So there are very unique features in India, particularly, and even the culture of China, the Eastern countries is different from the Western countries. Eastern countries are more, if you can recall in Unit 1, Eastern parts concentrate on individual path and understanding, the self. But in the Western part, they concentrate on the behavior, experiences. In the eastern part, they concentrate on the mental processes, understanding the inner self of the human being. So, the psychological tests, you cannot apply them. One test is no doesn't fit for all. One test doesn't fit for all. Every test is unique to the particular context. So this is also one limitation. It is same. Next to it is subjective interpretation of qualitative data. Again, we are seeing the qualitative data. Data from qualitative studies are largely subjective. Largely subjective. Let us see for here. Okay, if you can recall Unit 1, William Wundt used this interpretation method, and even this is the one alternative method, and even interpretation method is also used in observational research, interview method, that is unstructured interview. There can be case study. All this can be interpretative. Interpretative, it is subject, the respondent, what the respondent gives you the information is the only primary source of data. What he says, you record. You record. There is no other point of judgmental. Okay. So, since they involve interpretation on the part of the researcher as well as the person providing the data. So, interpretation, yes, the respondent is doing and interviewer. What the responses say is decoded by interviewer. They are both dependent on each other, and they are also important to one other. The interpretations may vary from one individual to the other, because why? Respondent can, his perspective may be different from the interviewer perspective. Interviewer, as a psychologist, as educated, respondent can be uneducated, and cultural background is different. For example, say, is the respondent is from Western, interviewer is from the Eastern. Yes, there will be clear differences. The world seen by respondent is completely different from the world seen by the Eastern interviewer. There will be a lot of cultural factors which affects these things. So it is therefore often suggested that in case of qualitative studies, the field work should be done by more than one investigator. Why? Because interpretations may vary. Who at the end of the day should discuss their observations. What is the method? Of course, the interpretations may vary. There, even though for that measure, what is the measure taken? It is more than one investigator and discuss and arrive at an agreement before finally giving it a meaning. What is the meaning? The respondent response. In fact, one is better off if the respondents too are involved in. One is better off. What is one is better off? The experimental research, the study. How it can be better? When the respondents are also involved. So how many people are involved in it? The interviewer, there will be other supporters of research, okay, respondent, all these people will analyze the data, will understand the data and then come to a conclusion and give a meaning. Yes, there is something we have to note. There is an effect of the variable. There is an effect on what we studied. The hypothesis is correct. So all these things can be done. So qualitative data cannot be judged by only one person. Cannot be judged by only one person. You have to take others because it is dealing with qualitative data. If it is quantity, the numbers are very clear and you can clearly go through it and make a decision. But in qualitative, you have to be very careful. There will be a lot of factors which will affect. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for your time. Let us meet in the last session of the unit. If you have any queries, let us discuss. Please write to us. Thank you so much. Have a great day.